one last hero to tell you about. And actually, in my new book, my third book, which Rosie, over there, is on the cover. So when you get your third book, she's on the cover. That is the booth that we had at the Hague Appeal for Peace, and that was the day she met her friends. When Wahid and I were traveling through Canada, we came to Winnipeg. Now, everywhere we stayed was in the homes of the people. Every night we were hosted in someone's home. And then at this time, I'm going to read just a little bit. I'm not sure I'm going to read it. Maybe I'll just tell you about it. I think I can tell you. There was a couple called Aggie and Menno Klassen. Aggie was 76 and Menno was 80 when Wahid and I met them. We met them at a rally in their hometown of Winnipeg, Canada. That was the arrangements we made on the internet or however on the telephone that we were coming to Winnipeg. And they took us home to their house for supper. Aggie was born in a Siberian concentration camp in Siberia. When she was 14, she was dying. She had an older sister in the Siberian concentration camp with her, and her sister knew that Aggie was going to die if she didn't get her out. So they escaped. Peter Dyke, a man that if you look up, he's very famous. He arranged a Mennonite boat after the Second World War to bring 2,300 refugees to Paraguay to get them out of the Siberian area. Menno was sent, at that time, he was in his early 20s, and he was sent by the Mennonite community to go down to Paraguay and to teach these people how to grow their own food so that they could survive in Paraguay. And they fell in love and got married, and Menno brought her back to Winnipeg, Canada, and they lived the rest of their life and raised their children and grandchildren in Winnipeg. The week that we arrived he was 80 years old. Just the week before, he had arrived back from Chiapas, Mexico, because the Mennonites were sending 20 people at a time, 20 men at a time, down to Paraguay, down to Chiapas, Mexico, to sit on the porches of the citizens in a rocking chair. And so what they would do is go down, these 20 men at a time, and sit on every little village rocking chair on different porches. So the military would not kill the local people. The military was trying to take the people's land away from them, and by having international presence there, they would not kill the people. So that every 2 weeks, a new group of Mennonites would come down and stay on those porches so that the military would not kill them. And if you had been listening way back then to the news, you would have heard about Chiapas and what was going on in Chiapas. I actually remember hearing about that. He was a remarkable man. A couple of years before we were there, when he was just a couple of years younger, he was a part of the Pastors for Peace caravan to Cuba, where they would take provisions from Canada, cross through the United States to the Mexican border, and go across the Mexican border to get provisions to the Cubans, because America had an embargo against Cuba. But America wouldn't let them cross the border with the provisions to help the Cubans. So we don't do everything nice like we should. And it took starvation diets. in some cases, for them to finally get permission to go across that border in order to take the provisions. The reason I'm telling you that is my last story. It's actually in here on page 153, so when you get your book, you'll be able to read about it. What I want you to know is that everybody can make a difference. That is my one message. Is the reason I want to get these books in the high schools is so that high school students begin to understand a little bit about international relations, and so they understand everybody should be doing something to make a difference in the world. It can be the tiniest things. There's one man that I met in Canada, and once a month, he would go to the prison and read to the prisoners. I mean, that was something he was doing to help people. So it doesn't make any difference what a person chooses to do, being part of the Red Cross, being a part of the pathway, what was it that you used to do, building houses? Yes, building houses. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So my job now is, starting now, I'm going to work very hard to get these 3 books in the high schools, and as required or requested reading, because I do believe that they are an inspiration that any ordinary person, when you read my beginning of how I grew up and I was just a normal person, you don't have to be famous, you don't have to have lots of money, you don't have to be beautiful, you don't have to be 18, you can be any age, but you can make a difference in the world. So that's what I'm going to leave you. Is there anything that anybody wants to say before we actually close, and then you can come up and talk to anyone that you want to? We're going to stay in our chairs and let you come up. And also, we have a guest that just walked in the door, but I can't even say who he is, because it's Wahid's friend from the UN. And maybe Wahid, would you like to say who?
Yes, I have a friend here, Ang Chomu.
Hi.